All right, welcome in everybody to the Fantasy Football Gurus podcast. Today, no mock draft. We're not talking trades today. Since a lot of you are new, we want to talk background, maybe tell some stories of our past, things we've
Yep.
learned, a little bit of our history. Just because it's the fun of fantasy football. The memories that you make that you never thought that you would, and how much you would care, and the trash talk, and
Yep.
the trolling and everything else. But yeah, I guess to give a little background to begin with, I started playing in 2015. Back in college, roommate, or he's been on the podcast before, Jackson, aka Crow. Um, Beginning of that year, he just talked a lot about it. First, like 6 weeks of the season, I don't know. We were just gonna watch games together. I'd like cheer on his team, his players, and yeah, I thought he just did a good job of like showing it to me. Too bad he doesn't play anymore.
Right.
But then I say like the first 6 weeks, and then week 6 of that year, just randomly like a Tuesday or Wednesday night, I joined a public league on the old app we used to use, NFL.com. We use
Yep.
Sleeper now for everything. Sleeper's way better. But anyways, back to that. I just randomly joined a league. The draft started 9 o'clock at night. I invited Jackson. I was like gone for a little bit that night, and then I like came back to campus. Told them, and then yep, it was a 10-man league, only 9 week regular season because it started week 6.
hmm
Um, and again, some of this is college stories, not just these kind of stories, but yeah, I just remember there was a couple guys from Brazil, and uh, I could not beat those guys for the life of me. But here's the funny thing about that first league: I had the most points after 9 weeks, and it was by the next closest person I had more than 100 points by, and I missed the playoffs. Only 4 teams missed the playoffs, and I of course was fifth. Um, Jackson ended up getting the 4th seed that year, and went on a miracle run. He beat both the Brazilian guys that talked a lot of trash. I don't totally remember how it started, who said stuff first, but I can remember some of the things Jackson said because it was not about fantasy football. And he would probably hate that I'm even bringing it up because it's not the most politically correct stuff. I'll put it that way.
Uh,
um,
we we were 1920.
yeah, this was again sophomore year of college. So yeah, however old you are, less than 21. I remember that.
Yep.
Um, it's not things Jackson would ever say now. But again, these guys, they did talk trash out of nowhere too. Like
Yep.
they again got lucky. They got me on the bad weeks. I got them on their good weeks. So they beat me. They had shit to say to me. I kind of had to hold my tongue, uh, even though I had the most points in the league. But yeah, I just remember that being my first ever fantasy football. Ooh, the camera just froze.
Yep.
But yeah, that was my first ever fantasy football league. Here, we gotta like pause it for a second, or do you wanna
Yep.
talk for a second about anything that first year you heard
Uh,
about me and Jackson that you remember?
it was mainly just the Brazilian things. And
Yeah, they
then
were they were legit from Brazil. All right, I'm back up and
yep.
operating. And yeah, one was a Packers fan, one was a Giants fan. But yeah, Jackson, he got real lucky. Oh yeah, I remember where I was going. Just a couple comments about the draft. I remember I got the Jackson got the second overall pick, and that year Gronk was like number 1 or number 2. The number 1 guy actually was one of the Brazil guys. He went Aaron Rodgers first overall. Jackson went Gronk. And yeah, even back then, you didn't take Rodgers 1 overall, or you were just dumb.
Jeez.
And then someone else picked 3. I had the 4th pick, and I got to pick AP. So my first ever fantasy football draft pick. I have won 4 championships with him on my team. Now, granted, I have him on like almost every team, except of course this current year because he didn't play.
Yep.
And then I remember Freeman the 2nd round back when he was doing really well, and then Odell in the 3rd round. And no one would ever thought the following season he'd be like a top 2 pick. I only picked him because the year before he had the catch, like Oakland's had. I don't know. So I was kind of screwing around in that draft, but hey, I had a good team. Just didn't make the playoffs. Yeah, a lot of memories. With those guys. I'd love to be in a league. If you are a Brazilian and you played in a fantasy football league back in 2015 with a guy with a couple of guys that like the trash talk, please join Discord. We'll get you in another league. love to have another chance at you guys.
Right.
And then I guess we move on to 2016. We got you into fantasy football.
Yep.
Do you want to maybe talk about before you joined, what you thought it would be like, and then what it was?
So honestly, I couldn't have cared any less than about joining the fantasy football thing. It was more kind of just to kind of stay in touch with you guys, because by then I had already left college. I was kind of working in the real life type of stuff and whatever. And while we were always talking and whatever with Nintendo and E3s and stuff like that, it's just more of another way to stay in touch with you guys. But by that point, it's like I watched football here and there. Wasn't too up on all the knowledge anywhere close to where I'm at now. And then even to the point where it comes to time for the draft, I don't know what I'm doing. I was going to be busy during the draft, so I set a queue for players to be picked.
Yeah, who was your third overall, or who was your 3rd round pick?
Hold on. To the point where I put all the big names, all the people that were going to go in like the 1st round, not even thinking that, hey, other people are going to want these guys too. So I put like all the big names with like Cam Newton and and everything. And so 3rd round pick, I got the good old kicker. I'll let you say it.
Blair Walsh.
Yeah. I had him there because I was like, all right, one of the last picks, Blair Walsh. The year before he was wide left or wide right, whatever. So it'll be his comeback year. Yeah, he was taken in the 3rd round. All I remember really was a text like, "You took a kicker in the 3rd round. Dude, what are you doing?"
Dude, I for this draft too, I was sitting with a couple of work buddies at the time, not ones I talk about anymore, because this was again during the summer. I was way up north. Nowadays we'll do drafts together, but yeah, and I don't know, everyone was just like, oh my god, Blair Walsh in the 3rd round. And then even that was the Hamlin Money League too. And even in that league, people in the chat were like, you know something we don't. What?
I was just, not knowing any better. I set a queue, and I was like, all right, this will just do it for me. And I went back to what I was doing.
And then,
I was like watching a movie or something.
And then, not to jump too far ahead with that league, but you ended up getting the 2 seed.
Yep.
Now there was that Zeke trade that helped, but still the 2 seed. And then again, you got beat by a guy who pulled a bullshit trade. Now it didn't end up paying off, but yeah, we can
Yep.
get into that later.
Right.
So then that league, I remember the Hamlin Money League, 2016. Me, Jackson, and another person. I believe it was a chick. Her name was like J Star on fantasy football.
Yeah.
I don't know her real name. We all tied for the fifth and sixth seed, and then obviously the third person just wasn't in the playoffs, Jackson.
Yeah.
And yeah, we all tied with the same record, 5-7. So in that league, it came down to head, and it was like, since I lost to J Star twice, but I think I beat, or no, it was like I was like 1-1 against J Star. He was 0-2, and then me and Jackson were, he had beat me the one time, so he was pissed. But whatever. Somehow we all like had the same. It was like J Star had the head-to-head, but me and Jackson tied the head-to-head between the three of us, and then it came down to points, and then I beat him in points. It was, or no, I don't know, but it was some funky thing. I got the 6th seed, and then the Ian guy who, he did the like trade. It was like AJ Green for just junk. Beat me, then he beat you, but then luckily he lost in the finals. Screw him. Even though actually in person he was kind of a cool guy of that crew.
Sure. And like the funny thing is too, like before the playoffs even started, when Jackson and I had our bullshit trade, because it was at the point where he wasn't going to make the playoffs. He was just done. He always quits about halfway through, as it is. And so he's like, all right, somebody's got to win out of the three of us. And I was like 1 or 2 even at that time. He's like, here you go. And he gave me all of his best players, and he took like some of my shittier players. But it was somewhat even, but not really. But he started to do better with my crappy players, which is the only reason he was anywhere close to getting to the playoff spot. So it worked out for both of us.
So,
not in the long run, obviously, but
after the Zeke trade is just so hypocritical. Jackson said this to us, that Ian, again, like the commissioner of that league, he's like, oh, that's okay, but don't do that trade. Don't do another trade like that again. Blah blah blah. And then he goes and does that. And again, AJ Green, he ended up getting hurt, so he ended up doing nothing for him. But still, at the time, I was like, Jackson, that's kind of hypocritical. He said no, and then he goes and pulls a bullshit trade. And again, that was with J Star, who got the 5th seed, made the playoffs. But now one other thing from that league. Do you remember, I believe this was like the one night we got real drunk, did the like Mountain Dew vodka and stuff like that. But it was one of those nights somewhere around there. You randomly in that league were playing them that week, and then like you started talking trash. You just like totally said like you're gonna destroy them and stuff.
Yeah, so when it comes to fantasy football, if you say something in the chat that is any way derogative or anywhere close to me, just know I will not stop. Even when I probably should. It's going to keep coming, and I only get worse, and it only gets even more hurtful to the point where you have nothing else to say, and I am still going. And usually, I get pretty lucky where then I'm usually facing that person the next week or two, and I 9 times out of 10, I will beat you by almost 50 points. Just because I am more focused on fantasy football that week than I am the rest of the season.
Sending me a couple texts every day about that matchup. Yep.
If you make me angry, or if you say anything, and it could be like the simplest of, why are you doing that, you idiot, or something like that, I will go off on you, and then I will make it my purpose to keep you out of the playoffs. And it's every single year. For some reason, I ruffle somebody's feather every single year, and I have this gigantic 2+ week long argument for over the course of the season, and then I'm hated. It's usually for stupid stuff, and we could get to that type of stuff here with the later years.
Yeah.
But it's just like I'll poke fun at you for something stupid, or I'll send you a BS trade just to see if you're stupid enough to accept it, and people get furious at that and just like lay in, and then it's like, all right, it's go time. But every year I have that problem. Usually it's completely unprovoked.
but that being said, that league, if I remember, like you were playing him, you just said basically, you were gonna beat the shit out of him, something along those lines, and I think you did end up winning. And I don't know, Ian, again,
always
of that crew of guys at Hamlin that Jackson kind of talked to. He'd be the most like us. The other ones,
yeah.
Because again, I talked to him a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, that's probably why he didn't freak out too much. He was probably like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it was like $10 or $5 buy-in or whatever,
Yeah.
and even then, Jackson paid for us, and I don't know about you, I never paid him back for it. But
I hooked him up with a lot of Mountain Dew that year. But again, that's college stories that we'll save for when he hopefully comes in October.
Right. And then kind of fast forward a couple years. I mean, we've stayed on that NFL app for a while before we went to Sleeper. And I progressively I got significantly better. Besides obviously COVID year, which just sucked for everybody. And then started actually learning the game, learning about the analytics of it, learning kind of the game theory behind a lot of the picks. So over the course of the last 6 years, I mean, it's just gotten more and more fun.
Yeah.
And then obviously turned into this because we just can't get enough of fantasy football.
Dude.
Football ended, and we were already talking about next year.
Dude,
so.
I remember years ago, like, I would go up to Ely, and there would be nights, like, after work, or even when I had nothing to do at work, I would just be looking at fantasy football stuff. I remember, like, a month out from my draft, we were having 31 more days until we draft. Like, I was just that bored and like fantasy football that much. And but back to the 2016 year, I remember our other league was a 16-team league. We thought, this would be cool, 16 teams, be like a conference in football. But no, we never do that again.
Unplayable.
It was like every team was like so middle of the road. Like Tashawn got like the 2 seed with like a 8 or 9 win record. Like it was just everyone was just so middle of the road. But yeah, at least he made the finals. Did he win it? I think he lost in the finals.
Yeah,
I remember he at least made it there. I was cheering for him. But oh man, that league too. Week 1. I had a crazy amount of points. Like, scoring back in those days, if you scored 140, again, this was, I believe, no PPR, but only 1 flex. If you scored 140, that was nuts. I did that week 1, and I just remember Jackson being like, oh, well, it looks like you already won this league. But no, I didn't even make the playoffs in that league. My biggest mistake was... my wide receivers were just horrible. And unfortunately, throughout my history in fantasy football, that's always been like my weakest thing. I can draft. I'm the running back whisperer. I can get those late round quarterbacks. Kicker, defense, I can figure that out. But receivers, that's always my weakest thing.
Yeah. Mine was always, it's hit or miss. It's either I draft really bad in the running back room, like last year. Last year was the worst I've ever drafted for running backs was last year. It's either that or my wide receivers. Overall, I'm pretty bad at drafting tight ends because I usually just forget about them because I'm more excited for the big names and the wide receivers, especially that all of a sudden it's round 8 and I have a backup tight end. It's like, God damn it. But I've gotten obviously a lot better. At that point, it's just you got to draft the right tight end, and usually I don't. Like Kyle Pitts last year. So, but that's
in the first round.
Right. But that's the fun thing, right? Even when you miss, it's infuriating, but it's fun because it's like, all right, if I just do this a little bit different, next year maybe this will go a little bit better. Even though next year is like a complete different anomaly because all the teams are going to be completely different for the most part, and you're facing completely different people. Hands down, I know I get why people go crazy for the NFL draft because fantasy football draft is the best thing, right? In the entire world. Right along with playoff fantasy football too. But just the drafting and then trying to set up your team specific to whatever the league is, whether it's dynasty like we like or redrafts, it's fun. Dynasty's a lot more fun. When we were doing the mock earlier for just the redraft, I was like, I'm just so like dynasty focused right now. And like I had texted you when we had done the mock even earlier today. I was like, man, I just messed up this whole thing because I'm dynasty minded. And you're like, redraft is like, all right. Then it's like, all right, I got to retool my focus a little bit too. So, there's a little bit of that type of stuff too. So.
Yeah, if you're new to fantasy football, I would do a redraft league, maybe even a couple of your first year. But then, get into Dynasty. Dude, like years before Sleeper, we were like, imagine if you could have pick rookies, be able to trade draft picks. And then sure enough, a couple of years later, Sleeper, and I'm sure they're all fantasy football nerds. It's like our dreams came true.
And that's the great thing though too is like the trading the picks thing is so much fun because everybody has a different value for that pick, which is completely fair and fine, right? It's the same as like the player, right? I like Brandon Ayuk, for example, a ton, right? He's a top 5 for fantasy like sleeper kind of picks for me. It would take a lot to get him from me, but for somebody else, I mean, he might be chump change, So, and it's the same for picks. Picks for me, couldn't care less. Could not care less. Give me a actual proven player rather than, hey, maybe I'll get the 8th pick that next year, whatever. All right, whatever. Just give me the player, which can probably lead me to issues down the line. But hey, it's unproven so far. We'll see.
Would you rather have $800 or $800 worth of Tesla stock?
$800? Oh.
Cash. You take the cash.
I need to see where Tesla's at right now. But I guess even like, the transition going from the NFL app to Sleeper was an interesting one, right? Because we were on the NFL app for quite a few years, and then the transition to the Sleeper where there's a lot more on your plate, right? There's a lot more data, a lot more different kind of graphs. They rank things a lot differently.
The ADP on Sleeper is much better than other apps. Yahoo, we played in last year. That some of those picks were a joke, but yeah, like you were saying.
I do like some of the stuff that NFL app has. That's why I always try to do my own like little public league, whatever. So I also have access to all those stats as well. That way I'm kind of compare and contrast, like what does Sleeper say, what does NFL app say, all right, what is in the middle, right? And sometimes I can find somebody on waiver wire on this NFL app that's like, hey, this guy's going to be really good next week or whatever. And Sleeper's not even anywhere close to talking about him. It's like, all right, I need to dig a little deeper. So it's really cool kind of comparing those type of things. And that's something that I really want to get into with you as we're doing our weekly, like, waiver wire pickups. Who should you be at least looking at, whatever. And this is what the data says. Like, should you actually look for them or not? Or whatever. So that'll be really fun to get into and stuff too. So
Yeah, and that reminds me too, talking about data. You got to remember on Sleeper, since you had iPhone, you were using like
Yep.
like the version that had less data. Like when you were
Yep.
like, "Oh yeah, I just did this update. Now we get game log and we can see how
Yeah.
you scored I was like, "Dude, I had that like all year and maybe even last year. Like what?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then like I just got to like their history of like when they've been traded, when
Yeah.
who was they on first. Like I never had that.
Yeah.
uh, so no, and that's the nice thing though. Sleeper is updating all the time. The NFL app and Yahoo is the same thing it's been for the
Yeah.
last 4+
It's
years.
updated. Yeah. Yeah.
So
But no, that's interesting perspective. um, Using both
uh,
for knowledge tips. Yeah.
yeah. But I guess the kind of with my history of fantasy football, we kind of started. All right, I started in 2016. I have yet to win an actual league. As bad as that says, right? Why should you listen to me? Why should I even be on this podcast as the fantasy football guru and whatever? And it's because of how different I approach fantasy football in general, right? A lot of people approach it from just the NFL part, NFL minds, and whatever. I am strictly the drafting and the if I can do anything great in fantasy football, it's maybe not like placing the starters, knowing
I
who
know what you're gonna
exactly where to
say.
start, trading. I am one of the greatest trade minds when it comes to fantasy football, period. Mainly because of two-ish reasons. One, I will piss you off so much by sending you countless trades. Sometimes you get too confused with what I'm sending you and you accidentally hit accept on something that you shouldn't have. Or I'm just wheeling and dealing. I'm talking to 2, 3, 4 different teams all at the exact same time, trying to get a multi-team deal trade done, and you don't even know I'm talking to those other players, right? I am so good at trading. Now that is where I run into an issue though too, right? Last year, you and I were in a money league where nobody talked, nobody wanted to trade, and I didn't make playoffs. Right? It's one of the absolute few times because I think I've only not made playoffs like 3 or 4 times. It's super small. You would know better than me.
Yeah.
And it's always just because I know how to trade and I know how to manipulate certain people, and that's probably why he doesn't play with us anymore. Because I took it a little too far that last year.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Talk about it. Talk about the Deshaun Watson trade. Or else let me tell what I remember. So this was like a week or two before your wedding, and Jackson's coming to town.
Yep.
Okay. We have the draft sometime in July. A couple of weeks later, you're talking up Deshaun Watson. I'm like, dude, is he even gonna play? And then sure enough, that's the season. He sits on the bench or whatever as a scratch every game because of what happened. And then Jackson like still takes a trade with you. I remember, I think Lockett or Thielen was in that trade. It was like
It was like Watson, I got Thielen out of it.
It was like Watson and a running back for Thielen and a running back, but yeah, then like me and Jackson are coming back from your wedding. So what would you give me for Deshaun Watson? I'm like, dude, nothing. No, and that was a 2 QB league too. So it was he's super screwed. And then was it the same trade or a separate trade with Austin Eckler?
So hold on. Because I screwed him twice that year. I don't know if you remember.
Before the season even started.
So Jackson no longer plays with us, and I am convinced it's for 2 reasons. One, he doesn't start the right people when he should.
Oh, yeah.
And
we'll
whether that's
bench next, yeah.
Yeah, whether that's because he's busy, not paying attention. Well, there's a million excuses. I'm convinced it's because if you include if you don't include the year that he took the break, right? Because he took a break between that and then this last year
The
that he played.
COVID year, he took a break. Was his first
So,
year.
yep. If you don't count the COVID year, and he played, and you don't count the first year that I played, because he kind of just gave me that trade.
Yeah.
Every year after that, I've manipulated him into giving me his best players. And I think the final straw was not only that Deshaun Watson trade that we can get into, because I played that so perfect that I don't know if I can pull off another perfect trade like I did besides that Justin Jefferson trade we can talk about. But I also... Oh, wait, no, I think this is the same trade. So in that Deshaun Watson trade, I took Russell Wilson from him. And I got Adam Thielen from him.
Yeah, that's
and I gave him a backup running back. I gave him who was it? The bust. Jackson took him first overall as a running back when he was with Arizona, I believe.
David Johnson.
Yep. So I had David Johnson and as just a backup on the bench, just in case, and because there was some talk that he might be pretty good that year.
And
then Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think this was when he, after like the Hopkins trade, and then he was in Houston.
Yep.
So yeah, no one was that crazy about him. Another bullshit trade too was the Corey Coleman trade, and then hours later, it looks like he broke his hand at practice.
Hold on. Let me finish this part because that was my first finesse trade I pulled over Jackson.
I thought you always said you didn't know. Did you really know?
No, but he thought he was screwing me over. That's the thing. He thought he was screwing me over. It was his first time being commissioner, so he's high on ego because he was like in the top couple in that league. So he thought he was all right. Austin doesn't know what he's talking about. Austin doesn't know whatever. And I'm over there talking to my dad, who has won like 15,000 fantasy football leagues since I've been born. And I'm like, should I try this? He's like, there's no way he'll accept it. I was like, all right. And do it. An hour after the trade gets accepted, broke his finger. He's going to be out for like 6 weeks. And Jackson's like, so I'm just going to veto this trade. He's like, no, you're not. If it was flipped, you would say, ha ha, I screwed you.
It would be like,
good luck.
Only if everyone votes to veto it, then it'll get vetoed. I remember too, Corey Coleman, like, he was like a second round pick, maybe a first.
Wasn't very good.
But like, he only had like a couple of like good weeks. So you were just basically selling high in that trade. You weren't,
which is one of my favorite things to do. And it's one of those things I wish I did with Josh Jacobs. That year I thought he was going to be really good. Because Jackson was going to give me his entire team basically for him. And I was like, no, I got to hold on. I got to hold on a little bit.
The story with that, too, is like, that's the thing too. Like, it was like Labor Day weekend or the weekend before. I was up in Ely. There is, long story short, at the resort my dad runs, sometimes they have like college kids that are up there for retreats, whatever, drinking, talking fantasy football. So of course Labor Day weekend, right before the season starts, we are, and I don't know. I was just all amped up, and I remember sending you, or it was a group text chat, what do you want for Josh Jacobs? Fucking Jackson. Anything.
Well, so you're missing one really key thing there. I texted you first. Hey, send the text in the group chat. What would you want? What would I want for Josh Jacobs? Just to see what we could do. And then also, I told you to send me like some crazy trade for Josh Jacobs. I screenshotted that and I sent it to Jackson.
You did that like a couple times throughout the season. You're the dirtiest fantasy football player.
he was gonna give me like his first pick, his first round pick, and like because it was set up to be a dynasty. So thank God I didn't accept this because it was like his first overall, his like first round pick, and the third round pick the next year, and then some really good player. I forget exactly who it was too, and that was the starting trade. And it got to be a little too far where I was like, all right, I can't accept this because he will not be friends with us after.
Exactly.
But then it's like he came back the next year. It's like, all right, and then now it's full bowl. Got to go for it, and yeah. So,
I think
definitely.
I think while we're talking about Jackson, we can talk about the infamous Cannon bench. So the first season, when I remember him saying that, it was specifically for a couple of like running backs that broke out. One of them was with the Steelers. This was like Le'Veon Bell was out a couple weeks, and his name was like D'Angelo Williams or D'Angelo Smith. I think Williams.
Something like that.
I think he was with Carolina for most of his career, and then was just the Le'Veon Bell back when Bell was the big man in Pittsburgh. So Jackson was smart enough to pick him up, benches him, 30 points. Next week, same thing. Or it was like 20 points or something, whatever. But you got to remember, too, this was back before you did PPR, and like 30 points was like, that was like
ridiculous.
Yeah, that was like, top dog of the week, even with quarterbacks. Like, something to keep in mind, too, quarterbacks the last 7 years, they're scoring more and more every year because more mobile quarterbacks. But yeah, and then he literally on that called himself the Cannon bench, and even to this day, when we have somebody go off on the bench, he doesn't even play anymore. We still say it. It's just forever the Cannon bench.
The biggest one that I can remember, because it's my favorite one, is Davante Adams' rookie season. Because he would play him every now and then. And then the main time that he benches him because he's convinced that Davante Adams isn't going to do anything. And if I remember right, there was an injury on Green Bay where he should have played him. Like maybe it was
like Jordy Nelson at the time. Was big name,
probably got hurt. I think he got hurt, and he was actually going to miss that game, and then he'll be back the next week. So Jackson either didn't hear about that or something, and he has the biggest rookie game at Lambeau Field of all time. I think it was close to 50 points that game because it was just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, big play after big play after big play. And he was so mad. He was about to drop him because he couldn't keep him on his team.
Yeah, no. Over the years, the receivers and running backs Jackson's had on his bench. Thielen, a number of games. One year, I remember he was saying that, and like you even like traded Thielen to him or something, and you were like, dude, Vikings are going to be behind a lot this season. Play him. And then Jackson was just like stubborn and just never did. And then benched.
Right. That, and then it's like too is I know when I say certain things to him, he's not going to listen because
Jackson.
because he knows that he knows more about football, or at least he used to know a lot more about football than I did. But when I have an inside scoop, and I know it's going to screw him, and I know that I'm about to face him, I will say something, because then he's going to do the exact opposite.
Mind games in fantasy football.
It's the best. And that's there's reasons where it's kind of nice where it's, you and me, because we kind of think the same and stuff like that when it comes to fantasy football. It was nice when he played because it was kind of a whole different red flag and grenade kind of on the field there. Because you never know exactly what Jackson's team was ever going to do. Because it was going to score 40 points, period, or score 350 out of absolutely nowhere, and his opponent only scored 30.
Didn't he?
Oh.
Didn't he beat you by 100 one week?
Yeah, it was really bad. It was really bad.
It was like
and I will say,
to 50.
Yeah, it was bad, and I couldn't. Well, that was the same year that if you go to my Twitter, I have a pinned tweet, and I will never take it off because it was the same year that he beat me by 100. We made that bet. Whoever lost had to change their name for, I think it was like 3 weeks or a month of the season. You had to change the name to that person's bitch. And I destroyed him.
Again.
Yeah. He was so mad. Because even leading up to that week, I had multiple injuries. So he was like, absolutely, we're going to do this bet. It just absolutely destroyed him. And he was pissed. And he's like, do I really have to do this? Yeah.
Right.
Instantly, I screenshotted it because I was afraid he was going to change his name. That will forever be my pinned tweet. No matter how big we get, no matter how long this podcast goes.
You really did screenshot it to him, and you fucking sent it to me. I look like I'm crying, but that was like one of the top moments. That was like a bang to start the year. That was like 2017, 2018.
Yep.
And go to his Twitter. Is it still Unreal Origins?
Yep, it's still Unreal Origins and whatnot. There's like 3 attachments on there, and the main one there is Austin's bitch, and you had to keep it there for almost a month.
God, the day we release this, I gotta go and like retweet that or something. Or, this will be like a clip, and that'll be like the B-roll.
But I know as soon as you retweet it too, Jackson's gonna be like, "What are they doing? Why are they bringing this back up?"
Yeah. He won't talk to us for a little bit. But that was something else. Just reliving that. We hardly talk about that whole memory, but I don't know. It was just so funny tonight.
It was funny. I kind of forgot about it until recently too, because I was like going through, I was changing things over.
Over the years, anytime I go to your Twitter, I'm like, oh my god, he still has this pinned. But yeah, now you can never unpin it.
Never. I almost did it the other day too, and then I was like, "What is this exactly?" And I clicked on it, and then I saw all the attachments. I was like, "No, never, ever. This stays."
So
because I was gonna put our podcast stuff there as the pin, because then it had all of the links. I was like, "Nope, fuck the podcast. This stays right here."
So staying kind of I can't say that chronological. That was 2017. That was the year I had the dream team. So let me tell everyone about that. So we did some kind of challenge or whatever to decide like who got first, second, third. Of course, I got first pick. Todd Gurley. Yeah. I just knew all off season I wanted Todd Gurley. I knew he was gonna break out. The year before he kind of broke out, even though people were drafting him like 19. And I remember doing the stats towards the end of the season just to kind of gloat. It was like everyone's like average win-loss points. Mine was like plus 30. So I averaged beating someone by 30 points a week. Everyone else was like around 0, 10, 5, -5, -10, whatever. And I only lost one game that season, and that was the U, big whoop.
Oh.
That was your first time making it to the Super Bowl, though, or the
Yep.
championship finals, whatever you want to call it. So, of course, the first time you got, me with the fucking dream team, Todd Gurley, James Conner when he was like replacing Le'Veon
Yep.
Bell. AP was my flex.
Mhm.
DeAndre Hopkins when he was young and still kind of breaking out. Quarterback,
Yep.
I picked up Dak that year, and he was kind of breaking out. It was just like, oh, I had such a good team. Tight end,
Right.
I can't think of the tight end, but they were good too. I got screenshots of the team somewhere. Because I
Sure.
remember being a dick on Twitter. I was like, so we're doing a 5-person keeper league. Who should I keep? And, all these studs.
Yeah, and then it's like too. It's always kind of funny when you kind of think back at the past leagues and stuff, because for the most part, you and I always split, right? It's either
You
you
win
beat
in
me.
September, October,
Yep.
earlier, and then my team. I'm like Bill Belichick and the Patriots. As the season goes on, my team gets better.
Right,
I'm
and if you
trash in
don't, if
September.
yeah, and then if I don't know if you remember, 'cause I believe this is the 2018 season-ish too, or at least it's around there. Um, your first actual championship win was, I believe, it was against me, but with the caveat of you were 0 like 4 at the start of that
Oh,
league. And I was dominating. I was 4-0. I was on the winning streak. I was almost undefeated through that entire season. Except you beat me, of course, at the end of the season. And then I just fell apart, obviously, with playoffs. It's
yeah.
usually what happens. But I still made it to the Super Bowl. And then, of course, it was against you.
Yeah.
And I got crushed.
So, yeah.
I had nobody at that point.
That was the year before the dream team. I started 1-3, and then I only lost one game the rest of the year. Went on to
Yep.
win. Listened to you guys give me a whole bunch of shit the first 2 months of the season because it wasn't looking so well.
Yep.
But I just remember like holding my iPad, looking at my team. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I still believe in this team. I still like all these players. Like, why aren't I winning? And then sure enough, I go on and win.
Yeah, it was kind of funny though, and that's the thing too that you gotta love about fantasy football. You could be 0-4, 0-5, as much as maybe even 0-6, and you could still make that run if it's a good enough run. If you're up to that 0-6 part to win everything, right?
Hey, yeah, we just had a guy go 1-7.
Yeah.
Basically he had a lot of Cowboys guys. Dak came back, they started scoring, and then he won the I mean, again, we'll get into the
Yep.
latest league later, but yeah,
Right.
that exactly makes your point. And
Yep.
right? If Jackson had that team, he'd give up right away. He wouldn't.
You would have traded them all off at that point.
He just have a bunch of picks.
Right.
But
So, but that's the thing you gotta love about fantasy football is you're almost never out of it until about halfway through the season. Then it's like, all right, maybe we gotta readjust here a little bit, but that's the best part too.
yeah, waivers and yeah, how things
Mhm.
change. But yeah, so talking about my championships, yeah, it's the team that
Yep.
started 1-3, then 11-1. Then I had the dream team. Then
Yep.
again, the dream team, that was a keeper league. We kept 5 players. And I remember you and me were a little pissed because the draft came, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, we can't draft until round 6. Well, we
Yep.
were noobs. We didn't know keeper leagues worked like that. I remember before that, Jackson was like, "What?" It's like, dude, we talked about this before. You got to keep 5 players. You had all summer to do it. Sure enough, didn't.
Yep.
But then again, I ended up winning that league, defending my title.
Mhm. I think I had a really bad team that year too.
But again, like we kind of screwed ourselves with the keeper because like, I'm even thinking about it for our money league with the ESPN app.
Yep.
Like, okay, I don't have anyone that would go normally in the first round, so why would I keep these guys?
Yep.
Why not just pick Bijan or whatever, and then I'll take Travis or whatever in the second or third round. So,
Yep.
yeah, I can say we've learned
Yes.
since then. But yep, then I won that league. I wasn't as dominant, um, but then it was like, um, was it like COVID after that, or it's like I didn't win, and then I did come back. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then it was the COVID year. Whatever. We that wasn't a good year for
It was
us.
awful.
No preseason. My to defend myself again as an NBA fan, like I, the playoffs were going on in August and September. I was more focused on that than football. I remember that year you were like, "You guys ready to, big kickoff tonight?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm watching the NBA playoffs. I'm not watching the Texans and Chiefs or whatever the game was." Um,
Yeah. The only thing I really remember with that is like you and I picked all the right people for the most part, right?
yeah,
It's just obviously people were under COVID protocol, just we're gonna sit out that
and
year.
just injuries in
I think
general. Yeah,
right, and I think we drafted just a little too early than we should have that year, especially with COVID stuff going on.
yeah.
It was just a disaster,
I
just period.
specifically remember getting Russ, and then yeah, he had some kind of hand injury or something and missed a bunch of games.
Mhm.
Um, Receivers that year and then the year after, I just got so pissed off, like them always getting hurt. And we'll
Yep.
talk about that as we go. And yeah, I think we're done with the COVID year from there.
Yeah.
Um, Otherwise, the year after 2021, I guess still
That
some.
was Josh Jacobs, Hurt,
Yeah,
and Jackson's final year.
yeah, yeah. And then in the other league, again for the NFL app one, I remember, we were like still gonna do a league on there, and you were like,
Yep.
"Hey, what do you guys think?" And I was just randomly like, "Yeah, mix it up, do two quarterback, two tight end, or whatever, something to
Yep.
make a difference." And then yeah, we ended up liking double quarterback, and now I think
Yep.
again, super flex is like the compromise because
Yep.
we can get into the league we just played, um, 10 man 2 QB league, and like some people didn't even start quarterbacks because there's just nothing unless you wanted a backup.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean that's the fun thing though too is like with the experimentation, like there is a million ways to play fantasy football. Right? Obviously you have your daily fantasy and like DraftKings and stuff like that, but even just like for your team for the entire year, there's a thousand different possibilities that you can do. And we've slowly been experimenting with lots of different kinds of things, and especially this year with the main football gurus league. It's something we've never done before, right? We've always had kickers, we've always had defensive players,
yeah.
we've never had teams this big.
We've never had a
Um,
well, actually, we did have a tight end premium, but it didn't work the same. Yeah,
right. So this is a very big change, and doing the mocks, I feel like we're learning faster at what the curve is than all right, we got to draft. All right, week one. Okay, this is how this league is actually going to play. Right. I think you and I already kind of have a decent handle on how this league is going to play for the most part. Um, but that's the fun of it though too, right? It's who necessarily cares how you start week one or two because you'll eventually get it, or you'll have your own strategy and tactic that you want to attack it at. Then you just trade from there, or play the waiver game. I hate playing the waiver game. I'd rather trade, but
mm-hmm.
but yeah,
And then yeah, the 2021 season two, I forgot. That was again my fourth championship, and that was again where we met up in the
yeah,
finals. Uh, yeah, I just remember that draft too. So like again, stupid NFL doesn't, when you do a two QB league, it doesn't like weigh in. Hey, quarterbacks are really important. I was already
yep,
kind of thinking that, so I was all over Herbert and Murray in the third and fourth round, and you were like,
yep.
oh, I was beating my desk because I didn't get them.
Yeah, yeah. I almost broke some things during just that draft.
Yeah.
uh, and whatnot. But no, that was a really fun year too. There was a little bit of drama, well, a lot of bit of drama with a couple of players there that just didn't know how to play. Because
Yo,
obviously
do
we
you
made it to
remember?
the end.
Do you remember that year? That was Kyle Pitts' first year. Someone just
Yep.
whatever account just randomly drops him. I pick him up, and then yeah, that was my
Yep.
tight end that helped me win. Um, and then
Yep.
Dawson Knox, and then that was your first year with Schultz.
Yep.
But yeah, I got to bring it up for the recording for the podcast. Championship game, real close. You and me, low scoring for our
Yep.
standards, 120 ish, maybe 130 ish,
Yep.
somewhere in there.
Yep.
In a 2 QB league, only 8 teams. Sunday night football, Delvin Cook, and then I had Nick Chubb on Monday night. Both of them sucked, but
Yep.
Cook, what, 2 or 3 points? Or maybe not even a full
Yep.
point? Something like that.
All I needed him to do was score 12 points, and I would have won.
If even that much.
Yeah, or it was like 6 points or something like that. It was ridiculously short number of points. It was like all I need him to do is get one touchdown,
Yeah.
and I get my first Super Bowl win ever. And of course, it's with my star running back the entire season.
And that whole year, Vince, I have 3 first-round running backs. Yeah, how did Cook do you that year?
Oh, and that's granted. All right, it didn't go my way. I completely forgot about this. I had 3 first-round running backs. I had Dalvin
Eckler?
Cook. I had Austin Eckler, and
Zeke? Was Zeke a
it
first
might be.
rounder at that time? No,
I don't think he
no, he
was, but I did have him. But he was my backup.
Yeah, yeah. I think it
I think
was.
I maybe it was
No,
Mixon?
so I think I might have picked Zeke, and then like we did a trade. Yeah, it was Eckler and Cook for sure. Who else was?
Yep.
What? I think like you got Barkley in a trade, and then we traded Barkley and Zeke, and then maybe you counted Zeke as your third.
Probably, maybe. I feel like he was on my bench for some reason because I know I didn't have that great of a wide receiver room.
Or-
I had
or-
like Diggs and Thielen or something like that.
Maybe at the time you were saying that when you had Barkley on your team. You definitely had Barkley at some point because then you traded him to me.
Yeah, and he's always been somebody I've always instantly traded because he's too injury prone for me to have him. It's just like bad luck, bad
Yeah.
juju.
And that year wasn't the greatest, but I remember too setting the lineup that morning. I purposely waited because like I didn't want you to like I don't know. I was just trying to play mind games a little bit and actually for
Yep.
real set my lineup fantasy weekend Sunday of. And I took out Barkley and I put in Sony Michel, and Sony Michel did like 18, Barkley 9. No, I
Yep.
mean I was kind of wishing that I just did Barkley that Monday night game again with Nick Chubb. When he barely
Yep.
scored enough for me.
Oh,
to win.
that's who it was. I had Nick Chubb.
I had Nick Chubb.
Did you have Nick Chubb?
Yeah.
Who the hell was
I
my
had
third
Chubb.
running back?
I think
That's
it was
gonna bug the hell out of me.
Barkley or Zeke.
Sure.
But
Anyway.
but yeah, you said that, and then yeah, in the end, yeah. I think Sony Michel too. He was the highest of the running backs between us that week. So
Yeah.
it was like
Oh, dude, it's like I remember just how fucking heartbroken I was too to lose
was that the
badly.
worst loss of your career? Was that worse than the
100% because
100-point loss to Jackson?
when you get blown out, it's like, all right, that really sucks. Who cares though? But when you like work all season to build the absolute perfect team, and
Yeah, the
I
one
more or
seed.
less, yeah,
I was the 3
I
seed.
had right. I had basically a perfect team. I think I've only lost 2 games all season, or pretty close to that, and that was just because I was still in a build, right?
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, their building of their team stops after the draft or after like week 3. I am building my team all the way up until the trade deadline, and even then, I'm still looking at the waiver wire constantly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had the 3 first-round running backs. It's gonna bug the hell out of me, whoever that third one is. I had a really good wide receiver room. I think it was crap for quarterback. I can't remember who it is now. Maybe it was Kirk, because he's usually my go-to. But oh man, and then it's just like you get a low-scoring finals when you have that kind of talent. It's just like who cares?
Yeah, I mean that was the shitty part is both their teams shit the bed. And the week before we had like 180. It was like it was like more than normal for that scoring in that league. I remember I picked up Jalen Waddle his rookie year. He was breaking out in that league. He that's why I was doing good. I had receivers and then Godwin too, with Brady. And I remember like he played like Monday night or Sunday night, and I was literally able to bench him and still win because I didn't want him to fumble and lose. And then I was like, dude, if I kept Waddle in the game, I would have outscored you that week, 180 some. But
and then it's like,
and the dude, that league too, that playoffs, that round, you had some injuries or something. We were like, oh my God, is Jackson gonna upset you? Because he was the 4th to 5th seed, won his first round.
It's to win to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
because he made like a mini run.
Semifinals. It was like he had like a couple of good pickups, and then like your team, it had like injuries or people out with COVID or something. And even you were like, oh my God, is Jackson really gonna like pull the upset here? I was even thinking like, oh, if I get Jackson, I got this league in the bag.
And then like that morning, he's like, all right, me and Vince the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Come on. For some reason, like I'll go about and like you and I will be looking through the league and stuff and just be like, all right, you and I are easily like top 2. As soon as we start breaking down teams, all of a sudden injuries start popping up on my team about week 8. and it's to the point where you can't recover no matter what you do.
Before the end of the season, right? Yeah.
Right. Because you can't trade players with ACL tears.
And then there's nobody you can do.
Yeah. And there's nobody you can pick up to replace somebody like Cooper Kupp. That
8-man league, that was good. I can say I've won as the 1 seed, the 2 seed, the 3 seed. And I haven't won as a 4 seed yet. 5th seed, 6th seed. Maybe this year.
Not gonna happen this year. Nope. I'll win 2 this year, minimum.
All right.
Depending on how many leagues we do.
You heard it here first. He's winning a minimum 2 leagues. So then we can move on to our most recent fantasy football season. So we did a money league. Brandon, he's on this channel on and off. His brother is a bigger football fan, joined his league, or one of his 2 leagues with his like high school buddies. And I remember that draft. We were the first 2 to join. Dude, I was such a nerd. It like opened at 7 a.m. I'm like, Austin, you got the 3rd pick. You got the 3rd pick. I got 10th or something like that. You got JJ. I got stuck with like Alvin Kamara or something. Didn't know he was gonna have a million injuries that year. Still made the playoffs and had a better season than you, but otherwise, and then the first game of the season. Well, I'll make this comment first. I remember like after the draft, we were like looking at our teams and we were like, dude, we got some firepower. But then, like for me, Michael Thomas was trash. Bateman was like healthy for 4 games last year. Rashad Bateman, and then first game of the season, the whole Cam Akers episode.
Yep.
Midway through the second season, I remember series. I remember texting you. So is Cam Akers gonna play tonight? They've had Henderson in the whole season, and then Henderson didn't even finish the season with on the Rams roster, which is just crazy. And then Akers sat out a little bit, came back, had a strong finish.
But after I dropped him. Yep.
But then I remember we got a big choker in that league, and we just thought that guy was gonna be easy dubs. He destroyed me twice. And then I think he beat you, but I don't remember if it was bad or not.
That whole year was bad. You could count on one hand how many wins I had.
If you remember though, like midway through, I was like, dude, you're like third or fourth in scoring, but again, it was like me the first year, where you get everyone on their best weeks, and then when you get easy people, then you're on your worst week.
My points against was almost double than the person right below me at one point. That is that bad.
Yeah, you had the number one points against, right? You had the toughest schedule.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of fantasy football, is that's the luck part of it. You have those years, right? You've definitely had those years where you're pissed because you didn't make the playoffs because of the same thing, even though you had a really good team. I know you and I have had that argument in the past, where it's kind of like nothing you can really do. I mean, it's just the hand you played, and you can try your best to overcome that, but so sometimes it's just not your year.
That's why we're gonna do the win versus median for any of the leagues I commission. That was part
that's one of the good things.
That's part of the reason too why we moved over to the sleeper for that win versus median, is I never wanted to do that again. Score the most points and then not make the playoffs. That was just horrible, and that would have been bugging me in the money league if I was in your position at all. That would have been.
It bugged me all year.
And I know I would have heard so much shit talk too from the other people in that league if that happened. And then that reminds me of another quick story. So again, that happens to me the first year. Score the most points by 100, don't make the playoffs. Jank. The second year, Jackson's hosting a league or a commissioner, and he literally has a rule. I mean, I told him to do it. But it was, if you are the highest scoring team and don't make the playoffs, you automatically get the lowest seed, 4 seed, 6 seed, whatever it was. And that was just for me. And, dude, if we turn median on, win versus median, and that happens, then I'm making sure before any league starts, rule number 1, if you score the most points and don't make the playoffs, you automatically get the bottom seed. Like, that's just jank. And talking about that, I guess we can move on again to our most latest league. So now we try to legit 10-person 2 QB dynasty league. I like it. My biggest screw up again was receivers. Rashad Bateman got hurt. Cortland Sutton. He is my best receiver, but still out some weeks.
Yep.
I didn't pay enough attention to that it was a 3 wide receiver league. So, yeah. And then, picking 3 quarterbacks off the back, one of them being Russ, obviously wasn't the best. But I didn't see the collapse coming. That did happen. A little funny story. So my mind games, and I've done this other years, but I can only specifically remember this last year. So hop on the draft, and then I'm like, no one take Joe Burrow, or whatever, because I wanted Lamar at the 5th or 6th pick, whatever I was. And then of course I remember like whoever was number 2, Eric or whatever, was like thinking all hard about it. Or no, I think Eric was one because he got Josh Allen. So I don't know. Someone early on, I could tell they were thinking about taking Joe Burrow just to pick it.
Yeah.
And then of course Joe Burrow was there, but then I went Lamar, and then everyone was like, "What?" And then the second round came around, I was like, "No one take Dak," and Dak is who I wanted. So Eric was like,
Yeah.
"So really, you want Jalen Hurts?" Played him like a fiddle.
Yeah. Right, and you also did the one running back that was with the Bears that isn't there anymore that everybody's super high on. Allen Robinson. You're kind of playing mind games and saying his name out so everybody would take him. I don't think anybody bid on that one, but at least not early. I know with that one, I made the mistake of not taking quarterback sooner than I did, which obviously came to bite me really bad later on in the year.
Yeah.
To the point where I had to basically trade the farm just to get somebody like Derek Carr, who who didn't do very well. But
After the trade, right, he fell off a cliff.
yeah,
Except for the weeks, of course, he was on the bench.
yeah. But I still made it to not only the playoffs,
The finals.
but to the Super Bowl. Yeah.
So right, with the QB situation, Cup hurt, your first round pick, Pitts hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, and Pitt's off the team. Or no, just just on the bench. And then Mixon also hurt, too. So I had my top three picks all hurt. So that was awesome. And so basically my entire team was either trade casualties or waiver pickups.
And
So
if you remember before the finals, I made like a little preview thing. Because, dude, I don't think I'm going to do that every year or for anything ever again. But, like, you got to, like, yeah, you didn't like the other guy, whatever. He talked a little bit of trash, almost a year ago now. But, like, you got to admit, it was kind of crazy again. Like you said, you came in without your top picks, and you just, pulled an upset over G, beat him by 4 points, and G, number one seed, looking good. He had wide receivers for days that he could just, destroy you with. And then on the other side, what's his name? Team name
Eric.
loading. Or he beat Eric, because, Eric got the 2 seed. Again, team name loading starts 1-7, and then doesn't lose the rest of the season. Like, no one saw that coming. There was a point at which I was trying to get his first pick because I thought it would be the first pick in the draft or early. Again, I don't think I'd ever, because that was like Cinderella story stuff. You know what I mean? Like, between the injuries to start.
It is definitely a very different season, which is
how often does the 3 seed play the 4 seed in a fantasy finals? Like always, you always got to have either the 1 or the 2 in there. Right,
especially with a fantasy finals with that kind of story, right? I mean, especially with like Eric and G.
Right? They were looking so good.
Right, and they're juggernauts all season, right? Anytime I would get anywhere close to what they were putting up or anywhere close to taking their spot, I'd get bumped down another 2 because I faced them that week. So they're completely unbeatable in the regular season, and then it was just kind of keep cruising. But that takes you have to put in the work. Too, especially when your team's falling apart. You can either give up like how our buddy does, or you can fucking work for it if you actually want to win it. So which I haven't yet to do.
That being said, I remember in that league, you beat Eric, and he was undefeated at the time, and you made a big deal about it. But, that's fine. Yeah. Then there was the week you got beat by Zcal, and he didn't have a second quarterback. Somehow scores 200. just a great week to be playing him. And then
Yeah.
I remember, yeah. And then I lost to Eric by like 1 point or something, 2 points. Like,
Right. Yeah. And it's funny too, because like for the first handful of years that we played, it was always kind of straight up whoever wins. And then I was the first person you ever saw to win by like .06. You you couldn't believe it,
oh,
and we didn't think it would ever happen again. And then every year I have something, if not that close, maybe a little bit closer. I think I won by .01, or I lost by .01. Either last year or the year before. It was
yeah.
nuts.
So the first time that happened, I remember week one. We should have told this earlier. Week one, the Hamlin Money League, Monday
Yeah.
Night Football or Sunday Night Football or something. The guy you were against has a defense going, but he has like a 1 point lead or a half-point lead or whatever. All he has to do is not the defense not go negative. Of course, the dumbass leaves the defense in. They go negative
Yep.
1, and then you went. That
Yep.
was your first freaking fantasy football win, like 88 to 87, because the
Yep.
guy lost by 1, or the guy. That's, dude. That's why even in the playoffs, like I was telling you, I had a lead. I didn't have to play Jalen Waddle. Just pull him. Like why risk going negative? I don't know. I just
Yep.
my
So,
thinking anyways.
right. Yeah, you gotta play those games and stuff like that too. But it's just kind of fun. I almost never will blow anybody out. I will always win the really close ones for the most part, though, which is always interesting. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no. There's some truth to that.
yeah,
But yeah, I guess maybe the last thing we'll talk about is I remember too. So the first round of the most recent playoffs, you got Jay Pacheco in first round beat him, and then you've got to play him in fantasy basketball, and
oh, just
got revenge.
whooped.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it was just unbeatable.
but I guess fantasy basketball, yeah, we'll save that after maybe after a few years, get some more memories there, and be able to spill it all out. But otherwise, any other last thoughts, memories, trades, wins, losses that we forgot?
No, really, it's just hey, if you want to be part of these kind of memories or part of the trash talk and stuff, hey, for starters, probably don't trash talk me because I will unload. Uh, um, but no, just join the Discord and just let us know that you want to be a part of a league. If you want to be a part of the league and we have the numbers, we'll make it a whole new league and we'll put some kind of twist on it to make it fun, make it different.
Yeah.
One, obviously, it's really good content for us, and you can potentially make it into a video where we'll talk about either your team or how a match went between your team and us or something like that too. But then it's just more just fun, and then we can kind of try to figure out like the perfect fantasy lobby or something like that too, right?
Yeah.
Like the perfect settings, the perfect setup, and the works and whatnot. Like we talked about, where we love the dynasty, but there's a lot of other kind of game modes we want to explore and stuff like that too. So yeah, if you want to be a part of it, definitely join the Discord. Just go into the fantasy football lobby in there and just say that you want to be a part of something, and we'll get you in.
Yep. We'll try to pin the links for any recent leagues, and we'll be able to find it on the server below. But yeah, otherwise, it was a quick hour 20 minutes. A lot of memories. I'm sure there's ones we forgot. Hopefully we make more. And again, join the Discord.